Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 19th, 2017 edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Mikey B, and this week's episode is entitled No Roman Reigns Makes for a Happy WWE Universe. You see, Roman Reigns was nowhere to be seen on Monday Night Raw due to the vicious attack from Braun Strowman a week ago. Now don't get me wrong, there still were some light boos heard throughout the episode of Raw, but there was nowhere near the level of venomous hostility from the crowd as there is whenever we get a Roman Reigns appearance. I also feel a little bit bad for Roman Reigns, real name being, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any of these names, is Lieti Joseph Anoa'i. Actually, I feel really sad for him, as I just learned that Roman Reigns' real-life brother Matthew Anoa'i, who was former WWE wrestler Rosie, passed away Monday at the age of 47. That's terrible news, and it's always sad to lose someone at a younger age like that. Condolences to all of the Anoa'i family. I can't recall if the WWE has ever spoken of Rosie being the actual brother of Roman Reigns, and if they haven't, I doubt that they would mention this now. It would be nice for the WWE Universe to soften up and take it easy on Roman Reigns' character now, though, for a little while, after this devastating real-life loss. Back to the wrestling storyline, what I was about to say before learning the news of the passing of his brother is that I feel a little bit bad for Roman Reigns. I feel bad for him because this was Vince McMahon's decision to push him as the next face of the company, regardless of the very negative backlash from the fans. So a lot of the reason that the fans don't like Roman Reigns has nothing to do with him, but has everything to do with Vince McMahon. I don't think that there are too many people who actually know why Roman Reigns has been pegged by Vince and his creative team as the next face of the company. I have an educated guess as to why. After such an incredibly popular run with Reigns' real-life fellow family member, The Rock, the company probably assumed that Reigns could be The Rock 2.0. If we're comparing the two, you'll see how Roman falls short in almost every way to The Rock. Both wrestlers have a good look and good physiques, but this is an area where Roman needs a huge makeover. He still has almost the same exact outfit and has the same theme music from his start with The Shield years ago. Fellow Shield members Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose have both successfully reinvented themselves with different looks and entrance songs. Next, we'll compare their promo abilities, or how effective they are with a microphone. This is clearly a no contest, as The Rock is one of the greatest performers ever on the microphone, and arguably the greatest of all time. His promos were always a major highlight every week during the Attitude Era. While Vince and his team likely recognized the difference here, they probably thought that they could work with Roman on his promo skills and improve them over time. So far, this plan hasn't worked out. Roman Reigns usually doesn't have anything interesting to say as he speaks in his monotone manner. That's okay, not everyone is gifted on the microphone like The Rock. Just look at the current WWE Universal Champion Brock Lesnar. He has never been good in that area, so the WWE made the smart move and placed an excellent heel manager who can cut a great promo, Paul Heyman, with him. If the company finally smartens up and turns Roman Reigns heel, then it would be appropriate to get someone like Paul Heyman by his side. The next basis of comparison is their ring work. I would say that Reigns as a wrestler is adequate, while The Rock would rank higher as a good wrestler. This is where I hold Roman Reigns accountable for not getting over well with the crowd. His two signature finishing moves are nothing special. The first one is the silly, cartoonish, and aptly named Superman Punch, which looks like it wouldn't even hurt a fly, and the other being the Spear, which is basically a tackle and has also been utilized by dozens of performers before him. The problem with Roman Reigns is that people not only don't like him, but also don't respect him as a wrestler. I believe that every wrestler, not just Roman, should every year add at least one more move into their arsenal of moves. And Roman doesn't even make use of a submission hold on a regular basis, which is also something I believe every professional wrestler should certainly have. I mean, it's not as though it's difficult to find resources for additional moves. Look around at the WWE at the many other talents who excel in the ring and use a wide array of moves, like AJ Styles, to name one. A good example of what I'm talking about is current GM of Monday Night Raw and new WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle. Fans love to hate Kurt Angle for many years because he played such a know-it-all dorky character. But make no mistake, you ask anyone about his wrestling ability, and he had the respect of everyone. Say what you want about John Cena, but he has done this exact thing over the years, slowly adding new moves to his repertoire. I certainly respect him more for doing this. So this is how you win over the fans, Roman. Improve your wrestling skills. I'm not saying that this will happen overnight or maybe even in a couple years, but if Roman is around for a long time still, this is what he needs to do. He should never be satisfied with his routine. He should always be trying to improve, especially if you're at the top of the company earning the most money. And now to turn our attention to Monday Night Raw. I've decided that I will no longer review every single match and promo, as this was boring for me to cover, and I'm sure boring for you to listen to. I will just review the important events which affect the story. The opening of the program, not surprisingly, was the recap of the Braun Strowman attack on Reigns. I did state on my episode last week that we can anticipate seeing this footage hundreds of times leading up to their match at Payback. And like I said I'd do last week, I skipped ahead 30 seconds of the program past this part to the actual opening inside the arena. Braun Strowman came out and declared that Roman Reigns is not there tonight, much to the delight of the crowd on hand. He then continued on by saying that he just wants to beat up anybody and everybody. General Manager Kurt Angle then came down to the ring and said that he should probably suspend Braun for what he did last week and told him to go home and take the night off. Braun then left the ring and carried on doing whatever he wanted to do anyways. The first match of the night saw Samoa Joe defeat Chris Jericho while Seth Rollins commentated. Following the match, Joe and Rollins threatened each other, building this feud up with their upcoming match at Payback. Later on in the show, Jericho explained that all of his focus was to defeat Kevin Owens and get back his United States Championship in their upcoming rematch. We then see Strowman's destruction continue as he attacked Goldust and R-Truth backstage, preventing them from competing in a tag team match. The next segment was Miz TV, which featured guest Dean Ambrose. The bad blood continued between these two, as it didn't take long for the meeting to come to blows. Though it's not yet confirmed for Payback, it appears that these two will square off for the Intercontinental title there. The next matchup was from the Cruiserweight division as TJ Perkins defeated Jack Gallagher with both Neville and Austin Aries ringside. This match's main purpose was to showcase the coming together of heels Neville and TJ Perkins. Braun Strowman's destruction continued as he was dragging new Raw superstar Kalisto around before he disposed of him in a huge dumpster. As Braun was walking away, he got shoved into the gate and fell over. The camera then panned up as we saw that the Big Show was the source of that shove, telling Braun that he should pick on someone his own size, signifying a match between them later on. The next match on Raw was probably the most important one of the night, which was a fatal four-way match to determine the new number one contender for the Raw Women's Championship. This match featured Sasha Banks, Alexa Bliss, Mickie James, and Nia Jax. I'm not surprised as Alexa Bliss was victorious, as it would have been wasted momentum after bringing her over in a superstar shakeup. The penultimate match of the night was likely the best technical match, as we got to see for the first time Jeff Hardy fight in singles competition against Cesaro. It was an entertaining match throughout, with Jeff Hardy being the victor here. Don't be surprised next week on Raw if we see Matt Hardy versus Sheamus, with Sheamus winning that match to even things out heading into their tag team championship match at Payback. And in the main event, we got the Battle of the Behemoths when Braun Strowman faced off against the Big Show. There wasn't much to be excited about, as we saw this same matchup 2 months ago on Raw, once again before we saw Roman Reigns face Braun Strowman leading up to a pay-per-view. Definitely the best and probably the only highlight had to be when Strowman suplexed the Big Show off the top turnbuckle, which resulted in the ring collapsing beneath him. Even though this has happened before in the WWE, this was still pretty cool to see again. The match was then declared a no decision as the match ended at that point. Braun Strowman did get up and walk back to the dressing room, appearing to be the tougher of the two. Moving on to SmackDown Live, the show did open with an image of Rosie alongside his year of birth and year of death. To avoid any confusion, I learned the news of his death when I was reviewing my notes which I made for Raw prior to SmackDown Live occurring, and felt it necessary to mention it as I was beginning to discuss Roman Reigns' character. With this terrible loss, I wouldn't expect that we see Roman again until his scheduled match at Payback. As the show goes on, SmackDown Live commenced with one of the biggest acquisitions in the superstar shakeup, Charlotte Flair, coming down to the ring and whining that she hadn't had a title shot yet. SmackDown Women's Champion Naomi then came down to the ring and let her know that she can have a match whenever she wants. Shane McMahon then entered and decided that they will have a match later, and if Charlotte wins this match, she is granted a title shot against Naomi in the near future. The first match of the night was easily the biggest one of the show, as there was a six-pack challenge featuring Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, Jinder Mahal, Mojo Rawley, Luke Harper, and Sami Zayn to determine the number one contender for the WWE Championship. In my mind, it was between former champion Dolph Ziggler and the underrated but very talented Sami Zayn. Towards the end of the match, when it appeared that Sami Zayn was setting up Jinder Mahal for the finish, all of a sudden there were two men ringside, later named by the commentators as the Bollywood Boys, who would grab Zayn's legs and distract him long enough to be hit by Mahal and pinned by him. I, along with the whole WWE universe, was completely shocked by this outcome. Last week on my podcast, I described Jinder Mahal as a jobber, who unfortunately probably wouldn't amount to much in his career. Last week, on consecutive nights, he lost quite easily to Finn Balor and then Mojo Rawley. I have nothing against Jinder Mahal, but I have an issue with the WWE for booking this match. Jinder Mahal has never even won any titles in the WWE, and yet he is now granted a shot at the most prestigious title in the company, the WWE Championship? Does this not make sense to anyone else? I enjoy when the WWE surprises us from time to time, but not like this. The major problem with this match is that no one will believe that Jinder Mahal deserves this shot. And this is not Jinder Mahal's fault. This is the fault of the WWE's creative team. This reminds me of the past year for Dolph Ziggler. Once a two-time WWE champion, he had been relegated as a jobber and was hardly featured on the main card at any pay-per-view show. And then, all of a sudden, he was selected to be in the main event of SummerSlam against Dean Ambrose for the WWE Championship. Not surprisingly, he lost that title match and has faded off again since. This kind of booking makes me feel like the company has no direction at times. If you're planning to give Jinder a title shot, at least make him beat Mojo Rawley the week before. I understand him losing to Finn Balor. Balor has recently returned from an injury and is making his way back to the top matches. Instead, Jinder Mahal hasn't won a televised match in longer than anyone can remember, and we in the audience can only have one feeling towards this, which is, what the Seriously, terrible job, WWE. Sadly for Jinder Mahal, I doubt that he will win the title, and I suspect that he will return to mid-card level soon. There is also the possibility that Randy Orton loses the title to Bray Wyatt at Payback, which would mean that Jinder's title shot is lost too. I'm still hoping that Brock Lesnar, whenever he decides to grace us with his presence, because, he is the Universal Champion and should be on the program all the time, but isn't, because he doesn't care much, will make his return on SmackDown Live, resulting in the titles switching shows. Either way, Brock is losing his title soon because the company can't go many months without its champion showing up to defend it. Lesnar shouldn't even be a champion ever again for the WWE if he stays as a part-timer, as far as I'm concerned. The WWE is just so desperate to employ him that they'll give him everything he wants. A champion who works 4 or 5 times a year and makes huge money surely creates a toxic working environment backstage whenever he shows up and performs with the others who are working 300 days a year. And there is no excuse for this with Brock Lesnar. He's not like The Undertaker, who's in his 50s and has given everything to this company, including his beloved WrestleMania streak and over 27 years of service. He's certainly not busy with the UFC and probably won't be ever again after his failed drug test. Nope. Brock Lesnar, the extremely talented beast of a wrestler, just doesn't care about the WWE that much. If he was passionate about it like Chris Jericho or John Cena, he would be here more often. It's that simple. WWE needs to take the title from him soon. The only other notable match or moment from SmackDown Live was the women's match between Charlotte and Naomi. To me, this was also a poorly booked match. At least if Charlotte is competing to earn a number 1 contender spot for the Women's Championship, you make her defeat someone else to qualify for that spot, not qualifying by defeating the champion in a non-title match. This means that after defeating the champion Naomi, she has now earned her chance to try and defeat Naomi again, but for the title. Their match was okay, but I'm not interested to watch them fight again so soon. There's no way that people could be that interested to see that. At least this next time, Charlotte will be crowned the new champion. A bit of an unusual week in the WWE, with some real questionable booking by their creative team, so hopefully they will make some better decisions soon. Before I wrap up, I wanted to discuss my favorite Undertaker match question from last week's podcast. I personally would have to choose his World Heavyweight Championship victory over Batista at WrestleMania 23 as my favorite, as I was in attendance for this and it was his first championship in nearly 5 years. For all that the man gave to the company, he only won the top title 7 times in 27 years, and I was there live for 2 of those. I'm one lucky guy. Despite my personal choice for favorite Undertaker match, the overwhelming choice among fans and critics appears to be his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, an absolute classic which I can't argue with. Alright, well that appears to be everything for this week. If you liked what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, please leave any questions or comments below. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.